Rain battered Vharanor with relentless intensity, washing the streets in cold grey water that carried the stench of rot and decay. Fog lay thick over the rooftops, curling between chimneys and towers like living smoke. Kael crouched atop a broken parapet, soaked to the bone, his coat clinging to his body and boots slipping on the slick tiles. Mira's safety weighed heavily on him. He had left her hidden in the Maya district safehouse, but every patrol he passed, every shadow he observed, reminded him that the city itself was hunting them. His target was Baron Elric Dovan, a minor but ruthless power broker who had risen quickly in the post-coup chaos. Rumors suggested he was hoarding ether crystals and experimenting with crude attempts at replicating Drax's shadow magic, though far less precise. The Baron's estate sat at the edge of the Velan quarter, a warren of flooded streets and leaning towers, with iron bridges and scaffolds connecting the upper rooftops. Kael adjusted his grip on his dagger, the mark pulsing faintly, resonating with distant crystal conduits embedded in the city's infrastructure. He moved across the rooftops with practiced precision, leaping from tilting tiles and balancing on narrow beams. Below, watchguards in steam-powered exosuits patrolled, rifles glinting in the intermittent lantern light. Every step had to be careful. One miscalculation, one creaking tile, and the patrol would swarm. Kael paused to observe a pair of guards. Their route formed a gap just large enough for him to blink across. He extended his hand, the world around him slowing for a heartbeat, and teleported silently to the shadowed ledge behind them. A dagger flashed, and the nearest guard dropped silently into the fog. The other turned, rifle raising, but Kael blinked again, dagger at his throat before the man could react. As he descended toward the estate, the storm intensified, rain falling in sheets that blurred visibility and drenched him to the skin. Water pooled over warped wooden walkways, forcing him to navigate precariously, balancing on crates and fallen beams, occasionally sliding and catching himself just in time. The smell of wet stone and sewage mingled with faint traces of burning crystal from nearby warehouses. Inside the estate, the corridors were dimly lit, illuminated by flickering ether lamps that cast distorted shadows. Kael pressed against the walls, careful to avoid squeaking floorboards. Ahead, a guard patrol blocked the hallway. Kael extended his mark subtly, projecting illusory movements of himself in the shadows, causing the patrol to split and investigate false echoes. He moved forward silently, every heartbeat synchronized with the pulsing of the mark. Suddenly, a trapdoor beneath a rug shifted, and Kael fell a few feet, landing hard on the wet stone floor. Pain shot up his ankle and along his side, and he hissed softly, rolling to absorb the impact. He was winded, bruised, but not incapacitated. His mark pulsed insistently, reminding him to stay focused. He was not immortal. Every misstep could be fatal, and every guard could end him. Shaking off the pain, he continued, ascending a stairwell that led to the upper balcony. There, the Baron's private study glowed with a faint red light. Kael pressed against the wall, observing Baron Dovan, a tall man with a mechanical arm powered by a large, unstable crystal core. Around him, A half-dozen guards moved, carrying experimental weapons that hummed with ether energy. Kael exhaled slowly, extending the mark. A faint aura of light shimmered around his body as he paused time for a heartbeat, just long enough to dart across the balcony and take out 2 of the guards silently. One guard managed to react, swinging a heavy baton and grazing Kael across the shoulder, drawing blood. Pain flared sharply, and Kael stumbled, barely regaining his balance. The mark pulsed again, warm and insistent, guiding him to leverage the shadows. He ducked behind a large tapestry, breathing through the pain, watching Dovan inspect a set of crystal vials. Each pulse of the Baron's unstable crystal core sent vibrations through the floor, a constant, threatening hum that made Kael's hands tremble slightly. One wrong move, and the crystal could explode, killing everyone in the room. Kael blinked again, appearing behind the Baron. The dagger in his hand gleamed faintly, the tip tracing the soft curve of the Baron's neck. But Dovan reacted faster than expected, swinging his mechanical arm and catching Kael's wrist mid-strike. The crystal core on the arm glowed white-blue, and Kael was thrown backward into a stack of crates, splintered wood cutting his side. Pain coursed through him, but he gritted his teeth, rolling into the shadows to recover. He realized direct combat here would be suicidal. Instead, Kael used the environment, knocking over a tall shelf of crystal vials. They shattered explosively, blinding the Baron and the guards with arcs of radiant light and shrapnel. Sparks flew. Glass cut guards' hands and faces, and Kael darted across the room, striking silently with dagger and crossbow, picking off isolated enemies. Finally, Dovan's core stabilized momentarily, giving Kael the opening he needed. He blinked across the room, dagger at the Baron's throat, forcing him to surrender. Kael didn't kill him, not yet. Instead, he tied Dovan up and interrogated him briefly, extracting key information about shadow experiments, crystal shipments, and Lady Kor's deeper involvement in manipulating the Barons. The Baron's threats echoed in the chamber, but Kael remained calm, already thinking several steps ahead. With the documents secured and the Baron subdued, Kael moved Mira to a secondary safe house, a derelict tower overlooking the city. The child huddled under a blanket, quiet but alert. Kael cleaned his wounds as best he could in the dark, the mark throbbing gently in response to the residual ether energy around them. He felt pain along his shoulder and ribs, a reminder that he was human, vulnerable, and mortal. Outside, the city had grown darker and more decayed. Streets overflowed with water, corpses of the poor washed into canals, and the plague spread further. Rats scuttled freely, and the fog thickened, curling over rooftops and alleys like a living thing. Kael looked toward the palace in the distance, rain streaming down his face, and whispered to himself, "Each step drags me further into the darkness, but I will see this through. Every baron, every guildmaster, they will all answer. And then, the hand behind it all." Kael rose, bleeding slightly, soaked through, yet resolute. He tucked Mira safely into a corner of the tower and prepared to move again. The hunt for the remaining conspirators had only just begun, and the city whispered its warnings in the hiss of steam, the scrape of rats, and the distant hum of crystal-powered machines.